comedy to drama, scripted to unscripted. Here to discuss the challenges of editing across genres, please welcome Josh Earl, ACE, Stephanie Filo, ACE, Art O'Leary, ACE, Peggy Tachdjian, ACE, John M. Valerio, ACE, and our moderator, Maura, ACE.
Hey everybody, I am so excited to do this panel. This is cutting across genres. And let me just say, on this stage, we have a lot of genres represented. Right here, we have Josh Earl, who is known for Deadliest Catch, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Conversations with a Killer, Son of Sam. We have Stephanie Filo, who is known for A Black Lady Sketch Show, We Grow Now, and Daredevil Born Again. Amazing. Art O'Leary, he's known for Holiday Baking Championship, The Big Brunch, and The End Is Nigh. We have Peggy Tachdjian, who is known for Only Murders in the Building, known for, I lost my space, Monsters, Lyle and the Eric Menendez Story, and Born This Way. And then last but not least, we have John Valerio, who is known for Parks and Recs, White Lotus, and Jack Ryan. What a panel, you guys. So now that you've seen the illustrious people I have here, I'd like to roll to a clip on a compilation of basically what you see on this stage.
Someday, the world won't mock my shy and timid ways.
My agent assured me that I was on the list.
Whenever I stay at a White Lotus, I always have a memorable time. Always.
You're a real-life rabbi?
It's hot, right?
3 words for you. Treat yourself.
I don't want I'm gonna eat this and just walk away.
So you saying we ain't got a Taliban when we can hella hang in person?
I love you. You're okay.
These gays, they're trying to murder me.
My first one, actually.
Why is it that every disaster movie begins with someone in power ignoring a scientist?
That civilization cannot tolerate their being ignored.
Damn! This is serious business.
Have you come to destroy me, Obi-Wan?
I will do what I must.
Stop!
People are sick of all the doom and gloom.
Flippity! Blah, blah, blah.
So dramatic and so emotional, but I can't help it.
Where have you been?
I think that's some amazing work we got up here. I really want to jump right in and start with Stephanie here, because you did a Black Lady Sketch Show, and I did Key and Peele, which was a lot of fun. But I know with sketch, it's really, not only are you cutting comedy, but you're also cutting genre.
Yeah.
So talk about how you approach something that may a show that has a singing musical scene in it, and then also maybe vampires, or how do you go about taking on not only cutting comedy but cutting genre comedy?
Well, I think the thing that was the most fun about that show was being able to jump between different genres, but every single day would be like a new genre. A new sketch would be like, oh, today you're cutting a horror sketch. Tomorrow you're cutting like a rom-com.
Right.
So it's like you really had to, in my case, I hadn't cut sketch before, but I had cut all these different genres. I had cut like true crime. I had cut reality. I had cut different documentaries and horror stuff. So it was like I kind of had to tap into those old toolkits, which was really kind of just fun to be like playing around with stuff that you'd done in the past.
Right, because obviously having past experience brings a lot to the table with the new experience.
And I hadn't cut any sketch at all, but like when I started on Black Lady's sketch show, but something that I thought was so interesting is like within the reality world, for example, you're constantly like, oh, well, I don't have this, but I need to make the Kardashians funny, or I need to
Or I need that can't be true.
create like a fight scene out of nothing, or I need to, and so much of sketch is like just creating moments that aren't there.
Yeah, I did College Hill for BET, and we had one scene that was somebody had a shoe that was being thrown, and it was like, this is our moment, and you have like so little coverage. Yeah, that's interesting. So Peggy, you've done both unscripted and scripted, and like The Only Murders, that is a genre show. And obviously of these legendary actors and singing. And what's your approach when you're doing something, especially with an overarching plot versus sketch, which is a smaller, is more modular?
I mean, Only Murders is different for comedy, I think, because there's not a lot of improv, which I think people find shocking. But it's Martin Short and Steve Martin are brought in at the script level, so I think they put their jokes in at that level. So once they go to shooting, it's actually pretty solidly scripted, so it doesn't feel you're just cutting a scripted show and you're just doing the things that you know to do, and it's really just about timing and pacing, I think.
Did you feel like those guys, I mean, obviously they're comedy legends. I mean, was it, I mean, did you feel that their natural timing lent to your rhythm?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. It's really hard because I think when you're on set and you're watching something, it feels really different than when I get the footage and I'm watching. And sometimes a joke that on set killed everybody and everybody broke because they were laughing so hard, I get it. And I'm like, oh, it's not that funny, guys.
Yeah.
So I think it's, I think that our magic, what we can do in edit is that you can cut to someone's reaction before the punchline or right after the punchline. And that's really what lands it, more than just, the pacing of the actual joke telling. And with Only Murder specifically, it is like joke upon joke upon joke. It's every scene has so many jokes in it that you have to find the spaces to let the audience laugh or they're going to miss the next joke.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So that's like cutting to someone reacting is really helpful there too.
What about like music score? Because there seemed to be, I think in my memory, there's score in that, and sometimes comedies really shy away from that.
It's I think it depends on the scene and on the moment. I think in general we try not to overscore the comedy. I think really we bring in score when it's like emotional or for the mystery.
Yeah.
Of like uncovering or like, oh, pay attention, here's a cue or here's a clue that's coming, so I'm going to drop a cue here.
Right.
But I think sometimes the comedy is so good it doesn't need bump kind of,
Well, that's interesting too, John. So you cut Parks and Recs, and that's really dry.
Yeah.
Dry meaning that.
Yeah, right. Without music. And actually, I find that more often than not, music distracts me.
Yeah.
Unless it's so well done and organic that it's, invisible and you don't notice it, or if it, I think the things that make me laugh are the times that it's just the actors doing their thing and I'm believing what I'm seeing and it's grounded and there's a reality to it.
So I had an opportunity to cut a show with Retta in it, and I was blown away by her as an actor. I don't know if you had that same experience in Parks and Rec.
Oh, that show. I mean, everyone. Yeah, Retta, Jim. I mean, they're all incredible. Chris Pratt. I don't think he gets enough credit for being. I mean, I think he's truly a comic savant, and I mean, I'm not the only one who says that. Amy Poehler, I've heard her say that. Mike Schur, our showrunner, has said that. And I remember Mike Schur getting a little jealous and angry because, and I think he's told this story. He was like, where I was like, oh my gosh, like I write this thing and then Chris comes in and he creates something totally on the fly that's like 10 times funnier than what I wrote. and which is true. I think the challenge on that show, cutting comedy, was you have people like Chris who they'll give you like 10 takes of pure gold, and every single take is something completely different, and it's just like it's you get these embarrassment of riches of like, all right, which one do I choose? And then also trying to take all those funny moments from the different takes and give it a tonal, I mean, because some of them are just so different, you kind of want to keep the best of everything but make it feel like it's
Right.
all one.
So you had a lot of improv then.
On Parks and Rec there was a lot of improv, yeah, and Jennifer Coolidge is another one.
Yeah, well, she's
That's
I got. I want to hear so many. I could do an hour on Jennifer Coolidge, but it's interesting. Like, so improv also lends itself to unscripted because you guys, as we all know, because everybody up here is actually edited unscripted as well, which I think is a testament to not only the hats we have to wear as editors, but the flexibility to take those skills into other spaces. So, Art, for instance, you do a lot of the amazing, I'm obsessed with the baking championships. I literally like go behind the scenes with it all the time. But you have to take a lot of elements and to make it funny, you're using score more often, I would think. And how do you go about finding those moments?
Well, we're kind of with the baking shows, if you guys haven't seen them, they're kind of holiday based. So there is Holiday Baking Championship, but then there's Halloween Baking Championship and Spring and Kids, and they each have their own ethos about them and their own tone. And with Halloween, which is kind of my favorite, we really get to play with our horror toolkit because you come in onto a haunted house, but then Jim Henson is going to immediately pop out and say a dad joke. So you kind of have to backflip to comedy pretty quickly. And what I've found is that it's the same thing across all genres, is that you have to, there's a pentameter to everything and there's a beat to it. And I don't know, learning like how to create a tension moment, I learned under Josh on Deadliest Catch. Like, it's all it's pacing. It's just, and it's a natural rhythm. And I don't know, I'd like to say that there's a formula to it, but it's kind of like cooking. I'm not a chef, I'm a cook. Like it's to taste. I just have to watch it a bunch of times and then I see if I like it or not.
I would say chef is a good analogy for it, though, because we do have to season differently depending on the scenes. Like you were talking about taking, sketch show, going into genre and making sure that it fits from stuff you've done, and also making sure that you're creating the best performance and finding the best moments, because that's part of it, especially with unscripted. You are sifting through a lot of footage, right?
A lot of footage. I mean, Josh would speak better to this, but Catch was always the craziest one because what we were like 30,000 hours for one season?
Yeah, it was like 36,000, I think, hours for the 20 hours
per episode.
Yeah. That was just the main cameras. That didn't count like deck cameras and 24-hour rolling things and that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a little bit to go through.
Which is why we were always like nice to the camera guys on deck because, if you're in the middle of the Bering Sea and you don't get the shot, that's fine. I'm less apologetic when I'm on the baking shows and they're in a soundstage here in Glendale and they don't get the shot. Like, so there we go.
That's very true, very true. Well, let's go to Deadliest Catch a little bit because that to me is one of those almost confounding shows. And having been in unscripted, you have to rely on story producers. But what is it about making sure that you can arc the story the way you want to and building those tension moments?
Yeah, it was, I did that show from like end of season 1 through like season 12 or something like that. And each year things got, honed in and honed in and honed in. And yeah, it's a team. The thing is that the team on that show is important, if we had to do everything from scratch, it would take us,
I don't think you could do it.
You need the team, and then we can focus on, okay, here's the beats, here's the things that happen, and here's why. And all right, let's go in. How would this scene play out if it was scripted? Like, what do I need? Let's go find those shots. Let's see what's going on. And if it didn't exist, there wasn't like a pickup. Can't throw them back out. I should say, can't take the boat back out for a little while. Get that scene better for me.
Did you do pickups with OT interviews?
No, there wasn't interviews in Deadly.
Oh, that's right. It's voiceover.
It was all OTF based. So if you could be like, hey, we're trying to lift up this part of the story so people understand, you could send out and go like, just, say something like this in your words. How would you say,
Yeah.
So it was like impromptu interviews,
Yeah.
which, yeah, you're it's like we've all done unscripted. I've kind of compared it to I don't even like baseball that much, but it's swinging the bat with the weights on it, right? Like you got a lot of shit you're working with, you're doing it constantly, and then when you go to scripted, it's still's got its own challenges, but you're knocking off the weights for a second. You don't have to worry about, you know, can we tell this story? If you're there, you're screwed anyway if you're in scripted. But for unscripted, it's like, you're knocking it off and you can, all right, I can worry about my take. I can worry about my mood. I can worry about like, oh, I like the nuance of the eyes in this take. It's different than, hey, they said that line once. Good luck, make that scene work.
Right.
Enjoy it if you want to. So yeah, it is a little bit, there's more challenges there, but yeah, every story, whether it's comedic, dramatic, whatever it is, it's like the core is the storytelling, right? It's the
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why we all do what we do.
everyone up here has some sort of love for it. It's harder to teach that too. It's like, they have books about it, but I do think I think all of us had that little knack in the back of our brains that we went and did something weird and we told the story to someone and they're like, we didn't need that much detail. It's like, oh, let me edit that story for you then. Check this out. This is what really happened. But it's like, it's the core of it. And as Art's saying, you pick from there what it is.
Sure, and I think even with scripted that we do that. I don't know.
Well, I would say like I haven't had as much experience in scripted as my co-panelists have, but I would say that the interesting thing that I found when I crossed over once or twice is it's the unspoken things that are the most difficult when you go from unscripted to scripted. Because with unscripted, most of us, it's a team aspect, and it is the same in a scripted sense, in a scripted show as well. But how do I put this? People are less precious in the unscripted world. You kind of know that you're going in there and you're trying to make a puzzle, and if it's not working, you don't have to tiptoe around that. But I'm assuming if Meryl Streep bombs a scene, it's hard to tell the showrunner.
Meryl would never bomb.
I know,
a scene.
but
You're going to be quoting on that, dude.
Yeah, that was on tape, dude.
Difference than saying, "Oh, Captain Sig Hansen didn't land that line."
Yes, but also, I mean, yes, I think there's a fair amount of like protecting of the actors that we have to do in scripted that you don't do as much in unscripted. But when you have like the Kardashians, which Steph and I both worked on, like you are trying to, they're EPs on the show, so you're not going to put in something that makes them like look or sound a certain way, right? You're going to always be protective of them. So I mean, it's really hard to talk about the differences between unscripted and scripted because if you're a storyteller and you can tell a story, I think you can cut any genre.
I agree.
Right? But people really think that it's so wildly different. I don't really think it's a different skill set. And I think that the experience in one gives you a better leg up in the other.
I would say that's very true. I don't necessarily know if it's a different skill set, but I do think that cutting drama is different than cutting comedy in rhythm, approach. For instance, like White Lotus is a little funny, but it's very dramatic, and there's a lot of tonal shifts in that.
Yeah.
And music, and how do you handle going from one?
Yeah, I'd say that's the greatest challenge with the show is trying not to get whipsawed tonally, with the comedy and the drama. And there are things like I mentioned Jennifer Coolidge earlier, where she just, I mean, I wish there would be like an outtakes reel of all of her stuff, but I mean, the things that she says are just, I mean, so funny. I mean, but unfortunately, we can't use it. I mean, and we try. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, trying to fit it in so that it does feel like it's part of the story and has a natural, elegant flow, so it doesn't feel like it's coming out of nowhere. So that was a challenge, trying to modulate and calibrate that tone of comedy and drama, and then also the way we arrange the scenes. Like so much of the show, I mean, there are modular scenes with these ensemble characters. It was a puzzle where we would spend so much time just rearranging scenes because we'd find that we were being whipsawed with going to comedy to drama, and this scene is salacious, so we tried to keep it a little bit more of an even shift, so if when we were shifting, it was a little gradual. And then once we were here, we stayed there. And then if we just tried to, I guess, limit the number of times we were shifting around. And then when they were within the scenes themselves, that was really challenging because.
I think safely, though, we could spend the rest of the time talking about Parker Posey's accent then and how that went. That cool? Just roll with that.
Piper, no.
Piper, no. That's an interesting concept that we talk about restructure, because I think that's something, Stephanie, we were talking about backstage is to me, and please don't tell any of my producers this, to me, a script is a suggestion, right? And it's a jumping off point. And I'm sure even with murders and of course unscripted work, you craft the story and it can look vastly different than you started. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think sometimes the issue in scripted sometimes that we run into is like, there's the intention of what's written, right?
Yeah.
And then when you get it, you're like, this is not at all what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And so I think having that unscripted background, which is what we were talking about, it makes us more comfortable in being like, oh, this story doesn't work here. Can we maybe restructure it a little bit? Can we maybe repurpose this scene because we don't have the performance maybe that we need, or we don't have the shots that we need?
And I'm sure you've had to reverse engineer shows. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely, sometimes you'll run into, like, for example, Daredevil Born Again, we overhauled that series, in the middle of the first season, just to kind of change the direction of it. The first iteration was fine. It was just a totally different direction. So it was like taking what we had and trying to create something else out of it. And I think because of like my unscripted background, I felt comfortable doing that, even though it's like, oh, this is a lot. We have to do a whole lot of stuff to try to make this new version work. It gives you maybe more tools to be able to like problem solve. And a lot of times the producers are so busy on something, they're all trying to figure out other things. So it's like you have a chance to really like dig in
and do it. Yeah, I had the same experience on Gen V, which the finale looked a lot different in the first iteration, and we just had to get it right. And it I don't know, we recut the finale maybe 10 times. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it gives you like, I feel also, do you guys feel this? In unscripted, I feel like every day you're collaborating so heavily with other people, other editors, your assistant editors, your producers. And I feel like in scripted, it's almost like having a superpower, because you're just like, I know this. I got this, and you talk to everybody.
You talk about it. I think it also teaches you to look at every frame that you have, because you never know when you're going to need it. You haven't bragged about yourself yet, but on Nobody Wants This, I know that you did that basketball scene.
Oh, yeah.
And you did that because you had looked at all the footage, and most people had been like, if they had just done scripted, they were like, well, we didn't shoot a montage for that, but you made it work.
So the story is there's an episode in Nobody Wants This where there's a basketball tournament, and the scene is one of the characters says, let's do a shot and let's do it every time they miss. And I turn to my assistant and I go, where's the montage footage? And she goes, well, they didn't shoot any. And I was like, yeah, they did. We're going to figure this out. And I just used, because they did shots from different angles. And I'm like, pick a song. I had my assistant editor, Jen Rosenthal. I'm like, what song would you do if you were doing a drinking song? She goes, Chumbawamba. I'm like, oh, okay. There we go. And so we cut a whole montage to Chumbawamba, and it really worked. And no producer said anything. Like, nobody said, this isn't in the script, or you shouldn't do it. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about that, because those are big swings, right? And I think we all need to take big swings. I know, I'm sure in Big Brunch you took big swings. And
yeah, I did. I'm trying to think about what
that puts you on the spot.
So.
Peggy, I'm sure you took big swings.
Answer now.
Yes, I did. I think you always just play around, right? You always, and I get the script, and I will cut the scene as scripted, and if it's not working, I almost always cut like an Alt or 5 just to see what other ways to make it work, and then I kind of put my favorite forward and see how the producer reacts. And then if they're like, wait, I thought we scripted differently, I can show them the version that's scripted and be like, it just wasn't as funny, or it wasn't as dark, or it wasn't as compelling, but we'll do whatever you want,
Do you find that that usually makes them feel heard if you have like their version there too, so that you can kind of
Yes, I also feel like they want solutions. Like they don't want someone to be like, this scene's just not working. I put it in the cut, but I just don't think it works. At least I can be like, I made an attempt at making this scene work.
Yeah, you kind of got to show them why it doesn't work sometimes too. It's
I feel like that's a good way to approach notes too. Like I always will be like, oh, this note, there's no way to make this happen, but let me see like I'll make that version and I'll make like what I think is like the correct version and just have all of them to show.
I think that, again, I learned this from Josh, but I think it's called like the spirit of the note, because if you take everything so literally, you'll probably note yourself into another problem, is what I've found. Yeah.
Yeah, you give them just enough. You do their version, and then you do the right version, and then you sell them that one as much as. But it's like there's always that middle ground, though. It's like something good's going to come from most things that you discuss, and it sucks even worse when they're right, because then you're like, fuck, okay, yeah, I guess. And then you do it that way, and sometimes you do it, and it's like it's better. Yeah, I liked it, so I did this with it, but it's great. It works great. But yeah, you get to do versions, and then you might find something you didn't realize was there because you did a note. And yeah, one thing I was gonna say though is we on the music note actually.
Yeah.
Is one thing that kind of goes across too is in unscripted. There's we score a lot of our own stuff. Like you're talking with the composer, doing the things and everything. And then, some higher end scripted and a lot of scripted set has music editors, which is one of the things that I found super awesome and amazing. But at the beginning, I was like doing all my own, Kelly and I would put our own stuff in. And then it's like we had this amazing music editor, Nick Fitzgerald, who
He's speaking of his very small show, Obi-Wan. I don't know if the end.
yeah, Star Wars. So, I mean, budgetarily, if they have a music editor, like now I'm like, and because at first it was like, yeah, we got this, man. Don't worry about it. Why don't you go over there? We'll just go ahead and score this temp ourselves. And then you realize the magic power of, a music editor that can come in and also can take apart the cue and go in ways where it's like, oh, I had a dissolve there. But yeah, I like that you layered it. That's cool. I guess that works better, and then slowly it was just like, okay, Nick, so check this out. I'm thinking this here. I did the dumb version. Can you do the awesome version? And that's just, it's just it's a luxury, first of all, but it is something that we did all have to learn to do our own and talk to the composer like on Catch. It was, depending on the composer, you sit and we'd have whole meetings and I'd be like, here's what I'm thinking. Here's the dream. And, can we talk about this? But you also have to have a cue that goes, here's the beginning. Here's a couple of refrains in the middle so I can cut there. And then it raises and then it goes down. And I need to have those things so I can do them. And then a music editor will come in and be like, I can make that happen off of that song you like from Edge of Tomorrow, which I totally
do.
Attempt into Obi-Wan because it was awesome.
Well, I think that's where music kind of comes in across all genres, is that it really is there to paragraph a thought or to help out a tone. But I always equate it to writing a paper. Like the music, especially in unscripted, just kind of helps you go from paragraph to paragraph.
Well, unscripted is heavily scored. I mean,
yeah,
it's wall to wall.
But also, when talking to Josh, or like jumping off that point from going from unscripted to scripted, I always liked sound effects. So I remember that was something that was kind of hard for me to give up, especially on The End Is Nigh, because it's the one time I really geeked out because Brandon Braga, our showrunner, was like, oh, well, we have the Star Trek sound effect library. And I was like, wait, what? Like, we have, like, you have the...
Nerd alert!
Yeah, it was like broken down by movie and series too. It was like, I spent like 2 days curating that. It was great.
Well, let's talk about music a little bit because, I mean, White Lotus is very iconic in its soundtrack. I mean...
Yeah, we work hard. Yeah, music is a big part of the show. We try to, with location as a character, within the show, we try to use music to sort of help that character and make it a part of the character. So we always try to use music that's local from the area we're in. It's all like Sicily, it was all Italian music. When the first season was all Hawaiian, and then this last season was all Thai stuff or Thai covers.
Right.
And then as far as like temp scoring, I mean, I personally, that's something that I've always done myself. I think we all have our strengths, and for me, I've been told music is one of my strengths because I've just been a musician my whole life, so it's always something that I personally have worked hard to do, and I do all that stuff. I break apart the stems, and I'll combine stems. Oftentimes will create my own stuff, taking stems from this song and that song, and from some of Christo's stuff from season 1 and 2 and 3, and combining them all to shape something completely new. And that's great, because then we can, it goes back to Christo. Christo sees it, and he gets a real, clear idea of what it is tonally we want, and the shape of what it is. And he's able to just, he brings us back something. It's just like, wow, that's amazing. And yeah, Christo's score, obviously it's iconic.
Yeah.
You can't, you go to a club and his,
You know what it is.
his song, his main title is playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Peggy, I noticed in Monsters too, there was like some really cool undertone score. And the one thing that had struck me on the clips you sent especially was your restraint not to cut, that you held on these actors and their faces, and it gave it such an eerie quality that I just thought was beautiful. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. So can you talk about a little bit, how do you create those moments of drama, and why did, what's your approach on not cutting basically for drama?
I mean, okay, I had incredible actors on that show. So like even when they cast the two guys playing the brothers, Cooper Koch and Nicholas Alexander Chavez, I was like, I read the scripts and I was like, God, I hope these guys can do it, because they were both pretty new to television. And so it was, they're just so good, and the performances are so good that you want to stay on them. I think the only time we ever cut away is if you, especially, and then we've got Javier Bardem and Chloe Sevigny. And I remember there's this scene in episode 6 where they're having like this conversation around the dinner table where she's basically like, I know you're abusing our children and it's okay. I just want to know the truth. Like, tell me the truth. And it's such an insane conversation for a couple to be having, and such an insane thing for me to be cutting. But like, Javier Bardem's performance is so good that you don't want to leave him. And I only would leave him for the moments where I felt like, the character Chloe was playing needed to react, But
Yeah.
then there's other moments where, maybe you're protecting the actor because they flub or whatever, and then you're cutting away. But I think a lot of it is just if you have great performances, to try not to cut. That's different than comedy where we're like cutting every 5 seconds, right?
Right.
Yeah, or just
Or split screening
Yeah.
to make sure performances land. Is
Yeah.
like I've never used more split screens than in comedy.
Yeah, no, that was the fun part of going back to drama, is just being able to play out some scenes a little bit more and not feeling so cutty and not pressured to like move the pace along. There are some scenes that are very fast paced in Monsters also. It's just
Sure. Just
figuring out like those really heady important scenes to how to live in them.
which makes, I think, drama so wonderful to stew in a weird way, Like even in unscripted with like Naked and Afraid that you've done, and with the shows you've done, and it's about creating these moments of tension that land not quickly, but actually create this crazy thing. Do you want to talk about that?
I think, well, the pleasure of working on Deadliest Catch was, when I was there, and it still is, it was like the Cadillac of reality TV. So, we had a $1 million Alexa camera on a helicopter doing our boat-to-boat shots. So you could really come into a scene and hang on it for 5 to 15 seconds, and you don't normally get that in unscripted. So the footage lended itself to that, but also the stories did too, because if a captain didn't catch their quota or someone gets injured, you want to live in those moments for a second. You want to see the reactions, and it's a real moment. So it was neat to see. Well,
Yeah. Well,
you cut the death scene.
yeah, we had a season where one of the captains did pass away, and it was like, we were there for all of it. It's Captain Phil. It was season 6, and there was like a lot of, what do we do kind of stuff, because there's that line too with some of that, because it is a drama playing out, but it's someone's life, like there were kids involved, there were, families, and how do you tell the story, gracefully without revealing too much that's going on there. But yeah, there was lack of music with that, but then there was also you know, because we were in the hospital during his final days, his final hours and whatnot. So there was a lot of dramatic things to be had. They were also very heavy. Like it was, you know, he had just had a stroke. He had part of his skull removed. There was a whole like very real things, but there was a father-son story playing out where he's apologizing to him and saying, I wish I was there more. I wish, you know, I have all these regrets. And, you know, they're having these real moments. And unfortunately, you know, there's a camera there. Luckily, they're all like family at that point. So they shot it all. We played it. And yeah, so it was lack of music sometimes. And we ended up using like Johnny Cash, I think, to wrap up that, you know, that idea. And there was
That montage was great.
yeah, it was like, you know, a wrap up of this pretty horrible thing. So it was drama at its realists, and yeah, there was similar things that you would do. And it's again, how would I do this if this was scripted? Even though it is a person's life, it's like, how would you do it?
Yeah, you want to show respect to it too.
That was the
And
thing. What do we have?
like We Grown Now too, that had a lot of like depth and how, you know, that's, and it was an indie, right? Yeah, and those are hard.
Yeah. Well, and that one was so much about basically being in the perspective of two, you know, 10-year-old boys in the 90s. And so a lot of that was also just like holding on the longest takes possible, or finding the longest moments that just felt authentic, even if it's between takes. Just something to like feel like you're within their perspective. And we had so much other coverage, right? We had just kind of traditional coverage, but what worked and what made us feel like we're with them was just like living in those beats.
Yeah.
And you know, just reflecting on like what would I have been like at 10 years old if I was going through the things that
they were
they're going through.
Yeah.
So it was really about just finding those breaths as much as possible, and also just like identifying a place. It took place in Cabrini Green, which does not exist anymore.
I know, is that weird?
Yeah, and just trying to kind of figure out what it would have felt like in 1993 in Cabrini Green, and the 16-story high rises. So there's thousands of people, and I think we built out like in our in our temp sound, I think we had like, okay, on this audio track is like the floor above, and on this one is below, and you know, we just kind of built it out that way. Just to try to make that I guess just the drama of that land.
Did you have the same experience with Monsters? Because you guys were basically, was it the 90s as well? Or?
It was the 90s. Yeah. I mean, yes. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
Well, I mean, you had certain music soundtrack that you were using, and there is a certain sound in the hairstyles and the looks sometimes that
The costumes.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it was our needle drops that were. The very first scene opens with Kenny G. So you're.
Oh yeah. Hey baby.
Oh, an old limo driving through Beverly Hills with Kenny G playing. You're like, I know where I am. You know, I've established the show right there.
Let's pivot to action, because we've all done action in one way or another, which I think is really cool, but in different ways. So like, you do action with a lot of your competition reality. You've got a timer and a clock and something you have to hit. Like, how do you approach something that's supposed to be just an action space?
Well, I think if it's a cooking competition show, you're trying to actually show someone or a group of people making whether it's a cake or a pie or an entremet or whatever it is, but you have to show the steps. So that can kind of give you a clear guideline of what you need to do. So there's a beginning, middle, and end that you have to hit. But also you're trying to track the stories of your top two and your bottom two contestants, because those are the people you're kind of focusing on, and everyone else is just kind of there or wallpaper. So that kind of guides you on that. But then I mean, nothing compares to like the fight scenes that you did in like, you know, Obi-Wan and Daredevil and stuff like that. I mean,
cool.
I mean, because the only thing I kind of touched on with that was like the end is nigh. We had a couple car crashes and stuff, and those, you know, they have their own beast. But I mean, the Daredevil fight scene, there
wasn't one knife fight in the cooking show. One.
We couldn't film that. Okay.
I feel like Deadliest Catch counts as an action show.
I think so too.
Action.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with the pots coming up and everything, like it was just and the waves and people. Yeah, yes, you're right. So, I think we're just like left with.
Sometimes it's lock off. It's like a lock off action scene.
Like a GoPro that you're going on.
Camera caught it, back camera caught it, and it's like dun 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 dun. If here comes the pot, it's going there, but it's from that angle and that angle, and
But how is that much different than
yeah.
me trying to figure out how to incorporate a stunt person who clearly doesn't look like their person? Like, how do we do, right? Like, how do we do this? Do we have any close up of fists? And I always found that when I did Gen V, that was my first real like, superhero-y stuff. And the action scenes, I'm like, had no idea how impactful 12 frames could be.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think that holds true in a lot of stuff.
Well, and we were talking about tonal shifts earlier, but John, when you did, I mean, spoiler alert, end of season 3, like, there's a shootout and then it's pretty tragic, like right after that.
Guns at the White Lotus. Surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's a little mini action moment.
But even your Jack Ryan stuff, there's a lot of stuff.
Jack Ryan had tons of action, and there were across the seasons that I was there, car chases and hand fights and explosions and all of those things. And yeah, I mean, I guess my approach to action is just some of the challenges you talked about with stunt people, and you don't want to see the manufacturing of it, right? The scenes, like people pulling their punches. You just like talking about how powerful the 12 frames are of just making sure that the movement is, it kind of has the propulsiveness to it that you don't see any of the slowdown of the rhythm. And I mean, I've seen some bad scenes where you're not believing the hits or the strikes or whatever it may be, and or the falls, and you just kind of want to make sure. I try to just make sure that that force is consistent and going. It's like it kind of is going through the wall,
Yeah.
not stopping at the wall.
Yeah, I was having. Did you get a lot of wire work in Daredevil?
Yeah, there's a decent amount.
Wire work, you guys, is hard to edit. It's intense, and it doesn't always look great.
Yeah. I feel like also so much with action is like finding the story, right? Every fight scene, even though it's like fun punching and hitting each other, there's a story behind it.
Yeah.
Like I used to be a dancer, and so I'm always like nerding out at choreography. I'm like, ooh, I get to cut like a dance kind of moment. But so usually what I'll do is I'll cut that together, but then I'm like, what ultimately am I like trying to say with this?
Right.
So like an example would be in one of the Daredevil episodes, it's a bank heist episode. So he's attacking somebody in a stairwell and trying to be really quiet. So when you have just like the initial fight sequence, like it doesn't necessarily, you're like, why is he like shushing this guy in a stairway? It doesn't make sense. So ultimately it ended up being like intercut with seeing hostages upstairs, with seeing people outside, just so that like you get the sense of them doing that. And so even though it is like a fight scene that you have to make tight and every frame matters, it's also like you need to be sure that you're like pushing that story forward.
Yeah.
I think I kind of remember too, while working on The End Is Nigh, I got to work with the lead editor, who was John Duffy, ACE, who has since passed, but he was a really interesting guy to work with because he had such a storied career, but he really kind of just attacked everything from his own life and going back from film school. And he would talk about how action sequences are like a script. You want to come in as late as possible and leave as early as possible.
Yeah.
Because he was like, and then people will like forget the illusion of what you're seeing.
Well, so that's interesting. So like you did Star Wars. That is, I mean, that's pretty ingrained in all. I mean, who doesn't know Star Wars? It's crazy. And it was Darth Vader. It's huge. So, you have to protect that iconography as well. But, how do you approach something that's so ingrained in our zeitgeist?
I think I've said it before, was like that part of the nerdiness that I definitely felt the whole time doing it. I had to put that aside to kind of also just, like we're all saying, it's like, what's the story of the fight? And what's the progression? There's in that fight specifically, it's like it starts one way, goes another, has some twists and turns. And another thing we mentioned was the unscripted realm of taking what you got and kind of making something new.
Right.
Deborah Chow shot the shit out of that scene. It's amazing. Like there was so much to work with, but there were sections that we were looking at. It was like, maybe not that, and maybe we'll do something else. And so there's extensions of moments because we had coverage,
Right.
to keep that rhythm and keep that, okay, he's winning here, Vader's winning here, someone's got the upper hand. But there were times where it's like, well, this section doesn't feel the same anymore. There is one thing in there that I'm glad we kept that kind of was like, I would keep that. It's the moment where he punches Vader in the face because it felt so personal, in my opinion. I just thought it was like, okay, or Vader punches him in the face. It's like literally just a punch. From a guy who can squeeze your skull from across the room, he took his fist and just hit him in the face. And I was like, that's so personal and so petty. Let's keep that. But it's like, okay, we have to then anchor the scene around this part to make sure we get to that properly then, because it was a part of a different sequence that isn't necessarily there anymore.
Right.
So that was like, so I had that like, I'll make it work, I promise. Let's keep him. I like seeing him get punched in the face. So yeah, it's the storytelling of it. It's the challenge of here's what I have and what can I do with it?
I also like making sure you fight for those little nuggets. There is a scene in Nobody Wants This where Sasha, the brother, is secretly talking to the sister in the bathroom, and he's hiding from his wife. And she's like, "Why are you in the bathroom?" He's like, "She doesn't know about me being friends with you." And at the end of the scene, the actor, Tim Simons, he just washes his hands and flushes the toilet and leave. And it wasn't in the script. It was just him like doing it because that's what would you do if you were hiding from your wife? You know what I mean? So I was like, this has to stay. And every note I got was, can we make this shorter? I'd be like, yeah, I took a frame off. It's so much.
I did your note.
I did it.
Of the
Spirit. And we've gone through a lot of stuff, but the one thing I really did want to touch on is something Art and I had talked about is advocacy. Now, we do all touch on different genres, whether it's comedy, drama, scripted, unscripted, features, or small screen. But I think what's important to discuss is, it's not easy to genre hop. It's people get pigeonholed very easily in our community, in our industry. So I personally like to advocate for people that I like working with. Art, you've had people advocating for you. You talk about a little bit how you advocate for people and how you want to see people advocate as we go forward.
I got my first scripted job when I joined ACE. They have the mentorship program, and you get to pick a genre that you'd eventually like to do. So I'm a nerd. I immediately picked, sci-fi, and I got paired with Tom Constantino, and it just was a nice coffee and conversation. And
Tom Constantino edits the Orville, I think.
And Ted.
And Ted,
A few other things. He's kind of Seth MacFarlane's guy. But they were having an issue on The End Is Nigh, and he just literally called up the next day and he was like, "Do you want a job on a sci-fi show with Brandon Braga?" And I actually was working at that point, so that was something that we all kind of have to deal with. Like, how do you exit gracefully and then go on to the next one, because you don't want to burn a bridge all the time. But what I would say is that what you want to do is when you feel that the time is right and you want to recommend someone, because that does put your name on the line. You want to make sure that you're setting them up for success, but that you're also helping them break down a barrier. Because, Josh was just off of Obi-Wan, and then, I think it's pretty apparent to most people in this room, we've all lived through the past 4 years, like the bottom fell out in 2022. And a lot of people were punching below their weight to get different jobs, and that created a lot of tension in the town and in the community. But you, after Obi-Wan, had trouble getting into docs, and if someone,
Yeah, it's like there's always walls for different types of everything. It's the "what have you done for me lately" vibe that you get. It's like some places have that, like, yeah, I know you did that, but like, what in my immediate vicinity have you done? And you're like, what does that matter? But it happens for sure, and it's frustrating. But then all that does for me is light a fire under my ass. That's like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. It's like, if I can get in there, we'll see how that works. But it's like, if I can, I'm gonna make sure. But yeah, it's definitely advocating for people is huge. It's Kelly Dixon has something she says all the time. Her and I talk about this all the time, and she always says, you take the elevator up, but you always send it back down. Like that's the kind of way to do it. And that's hers. Mine has always been, yeah, I'll put my foot in the door and I'll try and keep it in there as long as I can. If there's something, if there's someone I know and I can trust or whatever, as much as you can. It's not like you can take someone. There's always going to be that thing where they've got to have something to bring to the table to help advocate with, but still, yeah, it's like,
I call it throwing people over the bus because I just want to make them feel better about
just make a book of these, because there's a lot.
Well, because like when Stephanie and I first met, she was an unscripted, and you said this the other day, I thought was funny.
I literally, so I was working in the same office as Maura, not on the same show at all, but I was like dying to get into scripted. And I was like, I know she like worked in reality once. So I just came and like harassed you.
She harassed me for like a couple weeks.
But Maura gave me like so much just like advice and tips. And also Peggy, like,
Yeah.
I worked on Dahmer, but that's because Peggy like opened the door there for me.
When I got into the Ryan Murphy camp, there was a lot of shows and a lot of their editors had just moved on to other things. And so there was just like a big hole they needed to fill. And I was friends with the, supervising producer, executive producer. And so it was very easy for me to be like, oh, I know a really great editor. She's from reality just like me. Because I think they saw me, they really liked me, and they were like, can't believe you've never cut scripted before, kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, there's a whole wealth of talent in reality that you just haven't been exposed to yet and you haven't met. So I was able to bring Daisha Broadway came in as my AE on 911. And then when we were wrapping that, we moved on to something else, and they started asking, well, who else do you know? And it was like so easy to recommend. I mean, there's just a lot of really great people in reality that we were able to recommend.
Can be a 4-letter word for some of those places too. When they hear reality, they're like, oh, wait a minute. And it's without that person. Because, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have been on Star Wars if Kelly didn't call me.
Yeah.
That's just
I mean,
like the
Kelly's,
truth.
is she here? She's
that.
amazing.
It's like, you guys want to call me, you got her, like that's just how it works. But it's the truth. Someone helping is huge.
You know what's also important is like understanding how to advocate for yourself when you're worried about getting pigeonholed. Because it's like sometimes in these interviews, they'll be like, well, you clearly haven't cut this genre before. Like, why do you think you deserve this? And you have to kind of be like, yes, I understand that you don't know like what I've done, but I can make something funny that was not funny. I can make something dramatic that was not dramatic. I can find a reaction shot that did not exist. I can do this. And, you kind of have to be able to lay out all of the different things you're capable of doing and why you're the right fit for it. And sometimes they might not like gravitate to that, but I feel like you almost have to like.
I especially since, when you start in comedy, people, oh, you can't do drama. It's like, oh, honey, I can do drama. And I think that's important because it's not just reality to scripted. It is comedy to drama. I'm sure we've all run into, I've been in interviews where like, you've got a lot of comedy on your resume. I'm like, yeah, I'm funny. But like, I can do this. And then when they get you in the room and like, my motto is if I'm not laughing or crying at work, I'm not doing something right, so because you want to get involved in your own cut. So.
Well, I've found that even within unscripted, there's walls. People will say like, oh, well, you haven't done competition shows or you haven't done docs or docu-files.
You haven't done true crime. You've done doc, but you haven't done a sports doc.
Yes.
It's different. There's sports involved. Let's get in line, pal.
There's always like that Bravo experience. Have you guys seen that?
Bravo experience.
Yep.
And it's HBO experience. Was it?
Yeah. I don't know if Bravo experience. No, never. I won't make the joke. I would love to open it up to the crowd to see if you guys have any questions for our illustrious panel. Please feel free. Yes. It's crazy hair over there.
Oh, it's that guy.
Michael Ruscio.
Hello, friends.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here, and I continue to learn a lot from you in my book here. I did have a question because a couple of times all of you said, show it to the producers and see what they think, show it to the producers. Can you talk about your relationship with the director, which is an intermediate one in the cutting room, all of you, and talk about that a little bit?
One thing I'll just say in general is that a lot of this job is people management too. We have to manage a room, and we have to be.
There's a reason there's a couch.
There's 100%. There's a reason a couch and sometimes liquor in the office. It's just there's a lot of things to be had. There's feelings the director has. There's feelings the producers have. Everyone's got something to say, and we have that weird role of managing all of that sort of. And we have to also. Well, I did a little bit of this for this person. But did I piss that person off? But it's room management, It's like, and one thing I've said a lot, and I'll say it here because anytime I can, I will say it, is the main thing is just don't be a dick, Just try your best, be yourself if you can. Unless you're a dick, then be someone else. That's the rule, this is something where we have to work together. It's like, it is way more enjoyable when you can go, hey, hi, and not go, oh, they're fucking here right now. all right, I'm gonna stay in my bay. I'm not gonna look at them. And then, oh, they're here. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for coming in. So it is the relationship is huge on how your one, your workflow is gonna go, but then two, how many times you want to do something to show that it works.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're gonna do the fuck you cut and be like, here, this is your thing. Looks great, right? How about we do it my way now?
Well, something I think is interesting about Michael's question is that unscripted doesn't have directors you work with at all. It's only producers. So there is a shift in how you handle the bay when you go from unscripted to scripted. So we have directors for a short period of time, which can be helpful if you don't know what they're doing. And then when you go to features, it is the director, and you probably had more experience than.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much you and the director, and you're cranking it out, in a feature. But it's ultimately it is just people management, and it's you might get through a director's cut on a feature, and then you get to the producers, and
It's all
they
different.
have a ton of notes, and you have to figure out a way to kind of balance that out and make sure your director's still happy. But is there a way that you can also satisfy what this producer note was,
Yeah.
or what this studio note was?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is just, in television, sometimes you only are with a director for like
Like 2 to 4 days, yeah. But White Lotus,
you guys,
that's like an auteur.
Yeah, that I'm so spoiled. Like that's a unique situation where my director is the end all be all say all. I don't have that intermediary, process with the director like I've had on other shows, which I've had, and I guess how I've dealt with is just try to sort of try to convey some sort of trust, that they like I'm a part of the show. I sort of feel like I know what the sensibility is of the showrunners and the producers, and I try to convey that when I'm working with the director so that they'll trust me and I can gently maybe nudge them in a particular direction if I have to. And some of them don't, it's their way and it's fine. But in the back of my mind, I'm keeping my own little cut of what I know I'm going to need to show later on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, but yeah, be kind, don't be a dick, and just be open and respectful, and just
Hear that, Michael? Don't be a dick.
just for you.
I'm just kidding. I know him. It's okay.
I think it's also about like trying to maintain professionalism in a way. I don't know. Does everyone else have waspy in-laws that you have to deal with or navigate? Because I feel like that's been a very good boot camp for me.
Yeah. I was raised by narcissists, so it really helped.
Okay. See, there you go. It's all about like maybe not showing your cards all the time in a professional way.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. That's probably my 2 cents.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah. Is there a tactful way to approach summarization with the director for producers? If there's like a tonal disagreement, for example, if you fight that a comedy go to for this drama, how do you approach that conversation? Vice versa.
Gently.
I don't know about you guys. I would try it their way and see if it works.
I think it also just depends on what your relationship is to the showrunner, producer, director that you're dealing with. So it's like sometimes you know them well and you can just say your opinion and it's totally fine. And sometimes you're new to a team and you're just trying to find your way and you're like, for fun, I did it this other way. What do you think? Can I show you? And see if they're even open to another suggestion. I've worked with both types of showrunners, and sometimes they want to hear your opinions. Sometimes they want to see them, and they'll never say yes to them, but they want to see them. And then other times they're, super
Don't want any.
don't want it. Yeah,
It's their way. They're like,
scripted. I wrote this. So and that's fine too. But that's part of the process. Is just you're constantly collaborating with the director. I get notes from my DP sometimes.
Oh.
Please don't use this shot.
but I'm gonna.
It's the best performance. Sorry.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's tact is definitely something that you just have to find your way through. And I think as editors, we are facilitators anyway. So we have to make sure that everybody's happy and be problem solvers, but be problem solvers on the spot. And that's where that's why when you find people who can do multiple genres and wear multiple hats, what an asset, because they can think out of a painted corner. It's just amazing. Anybody else?
I know it was said at one point that there's not as much difference editing between genres as people might think. But my question, just as a film student, not having picked a certain preferred genre yet, is can all editors edit in all genres? Like, are all skills translatable? Are they all learnable? Or is it more common for a strong suit to emerge and for people to go down one path?
What do you think, Jen? I see it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think to some degree, I mentioned before, like, we all have our strengths. I think, like, I find I'm better. I mean, I enjoy doing dramas more. I was doing comedies forever before I was able to do dramas, and I didn't understand that because I kept telling people, like, I'm not funny. Like, why? And my wife she's like, you're so dramatic. So I'm like, I know. I should be doing dramas, So I think it's just like, I think find what you enjoy and what like if you're like with my work, I feel like like a drug addict. Like I want my fix, like give me that fit, like everything I'm doing. And it's like, what's going to give you your own fix? What's going to satisfy you? And if you're, I mean, some people just have the benefit of being able to do everything, right?
Yeah, I think that's
But-
rare, though.
But I think find what you enjoy and what your strength is and sort of discover it. And, some people are just funnier than others and they're able to, the genius of comedy, of seeing comedy where other people don't see it and knowing how to make something funny. That's not something that everybody can do.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I know for a fact, like I've dabbled in a lot of stuff, and I am terrible at like super teases. I'm terrible at them, and I don't enjoy them. And I don't do them. And I think it's about finding your voice, because I think that's what the general thing is, right?
I think also asking for help. Like my first season of 911, I was new to scripted. I had never cut action before. Tom Constantino was on that show with me. Tom's getting a lot of shout outs today. And I would just knock on his door and I'd be like, I just cut this big action sequence. Can you come look at it and tell me what you think? I want your notes before I show this to my director because I don't know if I did it right. And he would come in and he'd be like, oh, this is great. But sometimes we try this or go wide here. And it was like just those little conversations in the edit bay were invaluable. So at least that wasn't someone falling.
That was me
Did I fall?
with water.
One thing to add on all of it too, it's like if you're an artist and you're sketching, right? If you can practice too, just practice. If you want to do something, and well, I did comedy, I could probably just do drama. Like I wouldn't recommend that because that'll also make you hit a wall. Like practice with it, whatever you can, because like technique is a thing. Like you can study the technique, but some of that stuff you're going to have in you with the storytelling. It's going to come naturally and you go, oh my gosh, I get it now. Or here's this. But if someone who wants to, paint with oil paintings starts and never practices, I mean, sure, there's someone who's like a savant. You're like, oh my God, you never did anything. But for the most part, they're, they have a sketchbook. They're drawing constantly. They're trying to make it better. Do that with editing, do what you can, study other people's things, talk to people, do whatever you can.
Or even like writing, because it's all about story. So it's just like make sure that you're a good storyteller, start there, and then you can kind of branch out anywhere, I think, wherever you're comfortable.
100%. I think it's also, I tell my kids this, like you should have a growth mindset throughout your life. Like you should be curious. You should, if you think that you've mastered everything, you probably haven't. So I think what Peggy was saying too about asking people and what you were saying about reality is that like, bounce ideas off people, have people watch it because they'll probably see something that you don't, and you'll probably learn something along the way.
And that circles back to advocacy. So like you were saying, you got the door open from somebody who also knew that even though maybe your resume didn't have drama on it, I mean, obviously you knew she could cut drama. It's not
100%.
Yeah.
But I also knew that she was nice and easy to work
Work
with.
with, yeah.
And that my producer would like her personality-wise. You know what I mean? Like, those things also go a long way, not just
Work
your
with them.
talent.
Yeah.
You can work with them and then help and lift up, and that's
Well, because especially on some of these shows, you're going to see them more than you see your family. So, I mean, you want to be around these people at lunch.
Yeah. I think we have time for one last one.
Hi, my name is Sharon, and you're such great careers and such variety, diversity in your projects. How do you decide of the choices you're given, which is sort of nice to, the way things are right now? Some people will be like, oh, I just got to take what's next. But how do you decide whether you want to do an episodic or unscripted or a feature when multiple projects are presented to you? How do you make those choices?
For me, it's who I'm working with. If I'm
100%.
who I'm working with, like, that's who I will want to work with you again and again. Sometimes I need a break from certain genres, and so I'll like try to be like, okay, you know what? After this, I'm gonna go do another I'm gonna try to go do another comedy, and hopefully I can, meet someone. But I think 100%, if I like the people that I'm working with, I will do whatever they want me to do, like any show they want me to do.
Yeah, I call it chasing the person, not the project.
Yeah. Sometimes too, like I'll feel like if I'm in one particular genre for too long, it gets stagnant for me, where I just feel like I'm not growing. And so I'll be like, if I can find something that's not this, I'll try that. But obviously, it depends on what's available, and again, if the people are good.
I think it also depends on like the time of your life and like the stage of your life that you're in and your circumstances. Because I think now I choose projects differently than I did when I was first starting out and I had a new kid and I was 28. Like, at that point I wanted to make rent. So, if I'm being really honest, but I think as you grow in your career, hopefully you are given more opportunities because you've worked with more great people that you can call upon.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, when I made the switch over, and I don't know if I ever told you, but I was working on Cutthroat Kitchen, and I got a call from this really small production company called Abominable. And they said, we have a 3-week job that's half your rate, and it's a pilot presentation, and you have to decide by Friday. And I called my husband. I was like, I really want to do this because this is a company I really wanted to get into. And he's like, oh, just do it, I guess. And I walked up to the post producer. He goes, hey, how's the footage go? I was, by the way, on Cutthroat Kitchen for 1 week. And the guy walks up and goes, how's it going? I go, good news, bad news, buddy. I go, good news is footage is looking great. Bad news is my last day is Friday. And it was a real chance that I took. And because I wanted to work with this company. So that 3-week job turned into 6 weeks, turned into meeting her, turned into getting my first drama, turned into so many things by taking a risk because at the time we had the allowance to do that. You know what I mean? So I didn't have kids. I didn't have to worry, mortgage was covered for at least 6 months,
So there were more jobs, which
there were more jobs back then.
I know it's a lot harder now for everybody to like be picky and choosy. So yeah, take whatever job is offered at the moment, I would say. But at some point, I hope it all comes back full force.
Right. And it took me, I don't know, 5 years to get that offer. So, it's like laying the groundwork on all of these things, that it's all about networking and timing and the people you meet.
And I think too, especially like at events like this, try to look at people as it's laying the groundwork and not looking at people as a transactional relationship. I think that like a good thing is to join groups, join committees, and get to know people. That's the way that you really create a career.
And that's what I really love about ACE. We are a community of people. We're not just numbers. We're not just editors. We are people that, we help each other, but we also collaborate with each other. And that's why I wanted to do this panel, because everybody up here, I just met John on this panel. I think he's my new best friend. I swear to God. Are people that I know and people that I want to work with and people that I love. And I would say not only the smartest panel, but probably the best looking one you're going to have today. So I want to thank everyone for listening to us blather on about our awesome careers. Thank you so much, everyone.